Thank you all for being here today. My name is AnnaMarie Bena, and I'm Vice President of the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants. For those of you who aren't familiar with USCRI, we are an international nonprofit organization that for over 110 years has been providing care, services, and advocacy for refugees and immigrants. Today, our programs include refugee resettlement and refugee health, services for trafficking survivors, education, medical care, family reunification, and case management for unaccompanied migrating children, and legal representation for victims of crime and those seeking immigration status in the United States. USCRI also provides care for unaccompanied girls at Rinconcito del Sol, our shelter in Florida, where the girls can recover, get stronger, and become more prepared for the journey that lies ahead for them. In addition to our US programs, we also have social and legal services programming in our offices in El Salvador, Honduras, and Mexico. Most recently, in partnership with the Children's Village, USCRI has begun a one-year project looking back at the Unaccompanied Children's Program. It's titled Where We Stand, a 20-year retrospective of the Unaccompanied Children's Program in the United States. The retrospective reviews the Unaccompanied Children's Program from the passage of the Homeland Security Act of 2002 until today, assessing 20 years of legislation, policies, litigation, and most importantly, the care of unaccompanied migrating children by the US federal government, always with a view towards next steps and improvements for the years ahead. Along with the report, we will be highlighting stories of former unaccompanied children, which is the purpose of our webinar today. So I will turn it over now to our partner for the retrospective, Jeremy Coban, President and CEO of the Children's Village.
Thank you, AnnaMarie, and thank you everyone for being here. As you know, for many years, children have been coming to the US borders without parents or guardians. That's not new. These unaccompanied children used to be cared for by the INS. And while in the custody of INS, there were concerns that children were kept in detention centers. Many were shackled during transport to immigration hearings, and they had limited access to what children need most: timely family reunification, mental health services, and legal services. Once the Homeland Security Act was passed, the program was moved from the INS to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, an organization in the federal government that is much more sensitive to the needs of our immigrant families and immigrant children. In 2003, we had about 5,000 children in the ORR program. And last year, we had over 100,000 children. So clearly, the demand is great. The program has grown. Our 20-year retrospective looks at how the Unaccompanied Children's Program has evolved and the improvements that must happen. This process has taken a long time, and the demand at the border has not reduced. We need reforms, and I hope that you'll stay with us as we go through this process over the year to work together to identify the reforms, to celebrate the changes that have happened, and to work towards the reforms that are so needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Let's now go to Jenny Rodriguez, who is the USCRI policy analyst conducting the 20-year retrospective and our moderator for today's panel. Jenny?
Thank you, AnnaMarie. I have the pleasure of introducing three distinguished panelists with us today as they share their stories of resilience. Today's panel discussion will explore the factors that drive unaccompanied children to leave their countries, the barriers they face once in the US, and how the stigma around immigration affects them. While our panel will be conducted in English, we will give our panelists a moment to speak in Spanish to current unaccompanied children watching in shelters to share what it meant for them to be an unaccompanied child. Our first panelist is Tello Duran, Anna left Mexico in 2011 as an unaccompanied child with her older sister in search of a better life. After gaining asylum, Anna obtained a bachelor's degree in social work from the Virginia Commonwealth University. Anna received a master's degree in social work in 2018. Anna has worked in the field for more than 4 years, serving in various communities in Virginia. Anna has recently relocated to Illinois, where she is now working as a family support specialist with the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants.
Muchas gracias por permitirme estar aquí con ustedes y poder compartir lo que significa para mí haber entrado a este país como un menor sin compañía de alguna persona que pudo haber cuidado de mí. Yo estuve en su lugar, igual que ustedes, estuve en el albergue Puras Niñas en el estado de Arizona. Y en ese entonces lo único que uno puede pensar es desesperación, pero igual también pensamos en tener la fe de poder salir de ese lugar. Y para mí en ese entonces yo sentía que tenía que luchar 3 veces más que cualquier otra persona para mantenerme mi cabeza bien puesta, siempre agradecida con todas las personas que estuvieron en el albergue. Yo sé que es bien difícil estar ahí sin saber cuándo es que vas a poder salir de ese lugar, pero te prometo que vas a salir y vas a estar bien. Es difícil de creerlo, pero yo estuve en tu lugar hace 10 años y en 10 años he vivido muchas cosas y ahora estoy aquí y ahora trabajo con niños como ustedes.
Thank you so much, Anna. Our second panelist is Gerson Navidad. Gerson left El Salvador in 2016 as an unaccompanied child seeking asylum to reunite with his mother in the US. He completed high school in 3 years, learned English, and won several awards. Gerson participated in a congressional briefing in Washington, D.C., addressing the mistreatment of immigrants at the southern border. He is currently an undergraduate student at UC Berkeley, passionate about data analysis and history.
Hola, hola a todos. Mi nombre es Gerson Navidad. Es un placer para mí estar este día hablándoles a ustedes. Como muchos de ustedes, también fui un niño no acompañado cuando tenía 16 años. Para mí significó mucho sacrificio, al igual que creo que cada historia de cada niño que viene buscando protección significó coraje también, porque no es fácil adentrarse a una aventura donde no sabes qué es lo que va a pasar mañana o al siguiente día o en un mes. Así que para mí eso es lo que significa ser un menor acompañado y más que todo resiliencia, porque todos tenemos una historia que contar y creo que con nuestras historias, llevándolas siempre con nosotros, podemos crear un impacto grandísimo. Así que además de todos esos factores que acabo de mencionar, siento mucho orgullo de saber que hay otras personas que me están escuchando en este momento y que tienen la capacidad, como todos, de alcanzar todas sus metas.
Thank you, Gerson. Our third panelist is Alejandra Valdez. Alejandra left El Salvador in 2014 as an unaccompanied child with her brother to seek safety in the US. Alejandra graduated salutatorian from her high school in Washington, D.C., and is now at George Washington University, where she is studying to become an immigration lawyer.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias por haberme tomado en cuenta para ser parte de este panel. Como ya mis otros compañeros lo dijeron, para mí en específico, lo que significa ser un niño no acompañado, mucho sacrificio, como lo dijo Gerson, pero también significó demostrarle a todo el mundo lo guerrero que podemos ser y solo decirles de que tengan fe, porque vienen cosas mucho mejores para todos ustedes. Esto va a pasar a veces el tiempo se siente que pasa muy lento, pero sí se puede y sepan de que hay muchísimas personas que están trabajando muy duro para que ustedes ahí donde están ahora, aquí que estuvimos nosotros tres hace unos años, para que puedan reunirse de nuevo con sus familias y a demostrar de que sí se puede y que estamos aquí para cumplir nuestros sueños, para cumplir nuestras metas y que con trabajo muy duro lo podemos lograr. Así que sí se puede.
Thank you so much for sharing your remarks with current unaccompanied children in Spanish. Many factors drive unaccompanied children to leave their home and country and endure a dangerous and challenging journey. Could you share with us why you decided to migrate to the US with the audience? We will start with Anna.
I think for me, the decision came because I wanted to create a better life for myself. I knew I did not have the same opportunities back in my home country, Mexico, and there was a lot of violence going on. It was a point where people thought it was the norm. It was kind of saying, oh, you know, this happened last night. And I did not want that for my life. I knew I had to get out of it. I knew I did not want to die. I wanted to survive. I wanted to just be very resilient through all that that was happening back in my home country. I'm sorry. There was other things that were happening with my family, a lot of trauma within my home environment. There was a lot of trauma in various aspects of my life. And I knew that I did not want that. That was a decision I had made at a very young age. I just did not know how to get out of it. And I always heard about the American dream. And I never really knew what it entailed. I just knew I had to risk my life and walk through the border. And for me, it was something that I had to do it. I knew I wanted to have a better life, just not for me, but for my future family, my future children. And if it meant for me to risk my life to guarantee that I will be able to work and have a better future, I had to do it. And when you're in the midst of risking your life, and a lot of people that never have to go through it will never understand what we went through, because they always had all these other opportunities, and we have to create our own opportunities. And that was something I wanted to do all along. And it was very hard for me to leave my family, and it was very hard for me to detach from what my family had created for me. And it sounded selfish, but I had to leave. I had to detach myself from that environment, just full of violence and just full of all this generational trauma. I had to get out. And I'm very thankful that I got the chance. I think back, and obviously I will say, would you do it again? Absolutely not. I am very lucky that I'm alive, and I saw a lot of things while I was crossing the border, and I commend everybody that has done it. And I also pray for all the people that have lost their lives trying to make it out of violence.
For me, the reason why I migrated, why I left my country, was primarily because of gang violence. I was 15 years old when the country started going through a very dark stage, really violent. And I was really vulnerable, especially because I did not have my parents with me. I pretty much grew up without my parents, and I was really very vulnerable with the outside world. That was the primary reason I left, because my life was in jeopardy. And to make this very short, it is difficult to be, at a very young age, you know, in a country like El Salvador, where you know, you're exposed to dangers, you're exposed to different factors that might change, may change your life. An example, well, for me was that, you know, I was asked to join a gang. I refused. So it was it was kind of like a tough decision for me at that time, because, you know, at a very young age, you're living through all this crisis, and sometimes it's really hard to assimilate. The best thing that you can do is just run for your life and, you know, seek for solutions. That's what you know, people usually do. Look for solutions, save your life. And that was the main driver for me, you know, that led me to the decision to leave my country alone and head, you know, head north to the US seeking asylum.
In my case, the reason why I left my home country, El Salvador, was the same reason as Gerson did, because of gang violence. It got to a point where I had to leave, or I just had to die. I came with my little brother. I came when I was 15. My little brother was just 10 years old. And my family started getting threats of either us joining the gang or just ending with our lives. So like my other panelists, like the other panelists said as well, it is a very hard decision. In my case, it was my mother, the one that had to make this hard decision to send me and my little brother alone throughout this journey. That is not easy at all. We do go through so much, not just in our journey from El Salvador to the US, but also the process that we have to go through with the border patrol agents. From not understanding what they're saying, you know, the language barrier, to not being able to know what's going to happen next. So like we've said, every single kid has a different reason. But for me, it was gang violence.
Thank you all for sharing that with the audience. My next question is for Anna. Unaccompanied children face distinctive challenges as a result of traumatic experiences on their journey to the US. What are some barriers that you face and you had to overcome when you arrived?
A lot of the challenges that I faced coming into this new country were, the first one was the language barrier. It's very hard to communicate when you don't know the language. And I was in foster care when I was released from the shelter, and that was very hard. I was bullied in school because I didn't look like other kids, or I didn't speak the language. I was very sad because I was missing my family, and my friends that I made, they did not understand what I was going through. And sometimes I didn't really understand everything that was going on, again, because of the language barrier and just for the emotions that will come up every day for me. I think another one of the challenges that I faced when I started until this day, it's the culture shock. There's a lot of things that I still have a hard time understanding. And one of them is kind of translating everything in my head and speaking fast and thinking in Spanish and, you know, dreaming in Spanish or English. And so for me, the language barrier was and is still very challenging. Another thing is trying to fit in. For me, it was very hard because I was trying to fit it into something that wasn't really created for me. And I didn't understand how I was so focused on trying to be like someone else. And I will always put myself down because I would say, it's not fair. And they have all these other resources. They have their parents that are like doctors or lawyers. And even through college, I had to struggle with that because I did not have that same opportunities. And I had to work twice as hard. And I had to write a paper, and it took me 3 times longer than when my friend would do it, because she can dominate the language better than I did, and she had all these resources that I did not have, especially when trying to get scholarships or trying to talk to financial aid because they want my parents' income, and I'm like, I don't have any, can you please help me? And it was so frustrating because it's like, I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be successful, but I always found a barrier, whatever it could be and whoever it could be. But I also found a lot of people, a lot of programs that were willing to help me and did help me. Another challenge that I did face was just where I was placed. It was very hard because I didn't look like other people. I have brown skin, I have dark hair. And for me, a lot of it had to do with just trying to survive, trying to keep being resilient, trying to keep pushing forward, and just overcoming all those challenges. Until this day, I think about it, and now I take a step back, and I'm always very grateful, and I keep learning. And I know I'm still going to find challenges in my personal life and in my work life and everywhere I go. But now I know how to advocate better for my life because now I can speak English and I can also speak Spanish. So, it's a lot of experiences that have left a lot of trauma effects on my life, but I can also relate to other kids that I work with now and might not understand exactly what they go through, but I can say I've been there, and I can sympathize and empathize with some of the traumatic experiences and factors that they face every day.
Thank you so much, Anna. My next question is for Gerson. Unaccompanied children are often given negative stereotypes. What do you want people to understand about unaccompanied children?
This is a very interesting question. And to answer this question, I'll tell you a story. When I got detained by ICE in 2017, the first thing I thought, the officers will do was, this kid has come all this way, alone. He has no parents, no one's here with him. And so we must help, we must provide some sort of like shelter for him. Instead of that, I was labeled as a gang member because of my country of origin. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that I'm not the first, person to be targeted or to be like labeled as that. But it's very sad sometimes, the reality that, unaccompanied children have to face, because sometimes people do not truly understand why families or children are migrating, are trying to say why they're trying to save their lives. And for me, from my experience, I experienced several stereotypes. Another has been in school. I think just the fact that we're not born here and we want to get educated, we're being educated. That doesn't mean that we're not capable of doing like the things that that others can. Going back in high school, I remember being, like Anna said, I was having all these stressful times because I couldn't understand anything. I couldn't communicate how I felt, and it was very hard. And I cannot imagine the times that unaccompanied children have tried, to speak up, have tried to communicate how they feel, but aren't heard. And sometimes just the fact that we come, that we speak with an accent, that says a lot about you, about yourself. But some people do not see it the way that, we see it. Those are some of the negative stereotypes that I've encountered throughout my life. And what I want people to understand about it is that just like any other children, we are capable of doing great things, of achieving great things. But sometimes we need a little bit more support and understanding, because backgrounds or stories have a lot to do with what we want to achieve. But sometimes those barriers, we encounter those barriers, and it's really hard, to overcome, to assimilate our past experiences. So sometimes what we aim for is stability and understanding from others, because we just like any other individual, we have the capacity to achieve, to be resilient, and to tell others, our stories. And yes, that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Gerson. My next question is for Alejandra. Unaccompanied children have an unwavering amount of resilience. What are your hopes, desires, and wishes for the future?
My hopes and desires for the future. One of them is that our government officials create laws that protect specifically unaccompanied children, and that no kid ever has to go through such a difficult process, and instead are giving the opportunity to make their dreams come true, the opportunity to a better education, the opportunity to be able to show that with hard work and dedication, we can do great things. And I think that that's been proven, not by just us. I know there's many other former unaccompanied children that are doing great things now, like Anna working with unaccompanied children now, Gerson studying in university. In my case, I never thought I would be able to, and I ended up gaining a full scholarship to a university. And my dream is to one day, be able to be that guardian angel, just like my lawyer was with me, for all these kids. And also that we are able to create more spaces like this, so that people can, are able to be educated about the struggles and the sacrifices that we as unaccompanied children had to face in order to be where me and the other panelists are today. Because like we've said, we're not the first ones, but we will not be the last. And so a lot of my main hope and desire is that every single kid that is right now and will be in the future coming to the US, for them to have the opportunity that we had to stay in this country and to make our dreams come true.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. Now our next question is for Anna. What message or advice do you want to give to current unaccompanied children watching this panel? Feel free to answer in English or Spanish. And after Anna, we'll go with Gerson and then Alejandra.
Hace una vez, 10 años atrás, yo estuve ahí donde estás tú, y te puedo decir que lo vas a hacer, tienes mucho potencial, y si no lo ves júntate con alguien de los trabajadores que están por ahí que te lo van a pegar y te prometo que vas a estar bien y vas a salir bien. And you're so strong. Y eres bien fuerte. There's a lot of people that will join you in your fight, and it's very hard for you to believe it right now. But there's a lot of potential within yourself because you already made it this far. Not everybody can do what you did. And I promise you, Gerson, Alejandra, and I, from the bottom of our hearts, we are so proud of you for making it this far, and you're alive and you're healthy, and all these people that are creating this platform to share our stories and allowing us to show you that you can do it. Tú puedes hacerlo. Si alguien te cierra la puerta, te prometo que alguien te la va a abrir y te va a extender la mano para que sigas luchando por tus sueños. And I never in a million years, ever, in this life, I thought that I will have the opportunity to share my story with you guys and with so many others. I never thought that I could be this resilient. I am very proud of everything that I have accomplished. And it's not until I share my story that I'm like, I have done a lot. I have been very strong, and I will continue to be strong and to make sure that other youth and other kids that were in my place can see that. And it's very hard, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, believe it or not. Just hold on to your faith and just keep going and just keep pushing. Even if you don't know what you want, you're gonna get there. So estoy súper orgullosa de todos ustedes y no se desanimen. Te prometo que alguien te va a extender la mano y eres bien fuerte. Te lo digo porque he estado en tus zapatos.
Creo que el mejor consejo que puedo darles es de mantenerse siempre fuertes a pesar de las adversidades. La vida los va a sorprender de muchas maneras, así como los sorprendió en este momento que nos están escuchando a todos nosotros. Creo que no es casualidad de que lo estemos haciendo. Yo estuve ahí, he estado ahí. Y créanme, comparto mucho su sentimiento. No dejen, no desistan. A pesar de las cosas, de las adversidades, siempre sigan. Ya estén en una escuela ahorita escuchándome, ya estén en un centro de detención o ya estén en una casa reunidos, quien sea. Pero más que todo, para los niños no acompañados. El futuro a veces es muy impredecible. Así que no lo tengan tan en el corazón, no lo tengan tan cerca con ustedes. Vivan el presente, vivan hoy, vivan de sus experiencias. Traten de colectar memorias que en un futuro ustedes van a ver atrás y van a decir, wow, recuerdo cuando yo estaba escuchando a Gerson en ese panel. Y hagan referencia a todo lo que han pasado también. Porque muchas veces no es fácil navegar todo esto solos. Apóyense en los demás. Apóyense en sus familias. Quizá la historia de cada uno es diferente, pero lo mejor que podemos hacer es no desistir, ser resilientes y buscar ayuda, siempre. No está mal buscar ayuda. No está mal buscar ayuda en otros. Así que manténganse siempre fuertes. Todo va a estar muy bien. Porque no están solos, no están solos allá afuera. Así como en algún punto nos llegamos a sentir solos, créanme, hay mucha gente que está tratando de hacer cambio en todo aspecto y para un mejor futuro para cada uno de nosotros. Y así como yo lo estuve, así como a mí me ayudaron también, yo quiero hacerlo y les quiero invitar que también tengan mucha fe y que nunca desistan. Van a haber etapas muy oscuras en su camino, pero creo que ustedes, todos tenemos la capacidad de pasar por todo y asimilar en un futuro, para un mejor futuro, para cambiar la perspectiva de todos nosotros. Y dar a entender la razón principal por la que estamos aquí. Así que no desistan, sean siempre fuertes, sean resilientes. Y pase lo que pase, siempre acuérdense de dónde vienen, porque creo que es lo más importante. Nunca olvidar de dónde venimos, de dónde salimos.
Mi mensaje para ustedes es, como ya lo dijo Ana, como ya lo dijo Gerson, tengan mucha fe, tengan mucha fe. Nosotros estuvimos ahí, miren dónde estamos ahora. Sí se puede. Trabajen muy duro por sus sueños, muy, muy duro. A veces nos toca trabajar el doble, el triple más fuerte que los demás porque hay muchas cosas por las que sus familiares han pasado que las nuestros no. Y solo decirles de que tengan un poco de paciencia. Yo sé que ya han tenido mucha, pero un poquito más, yo sé que sí se puede. Es un momento muy difícil, yo lo sé, pero muy pronto estarán con sus familias reunidos o tendrán la oportunidad de asistir a una escuela, de superar todas sus metas, todos sus sueños. Pero creo que también un mensaje que también lo acaba de decir Gerson es: no se olviden de dónde venimos y que todos esos sacrificios, todos esos obstáculos que hemos pasado, que solo sirvan para hacerlos más fuertes, más fuertes. Y también darle gracias a tantas personas que trabajan día a día para asegurarse que donde están ustedes ahora estén teniendo una buena experiencia y que lo que ya ha pasado, el cruce de la frontera, todo lo que pasaron anteriormente, se les olvide. Porque yo, en mi caso, cuando yo estuve donde están ustedes, las personas que trabajaron en ese hogar, casa hogar donde yo estuve, me hicieron olvidar completamente todo lo que pasé anteriormente. Así que sí se puede, sí se puede, sí se puede.
Thank you to our panelists. You three are such an inspiration to all of us. We do have a few moments for a Q&A. So if you have any questions for our panelists, please put them in the Q&A box. Our first question is for Anna. As a former unaccompanied child who is now a social worker, what is it like working for unaccompanied children?
It is such a privilege for me to be on this side. I was on the receiving end, and I just want to make sure that I let these kids know that they belong as much as anybody else and that they can do it. And if that means that I will fight all the barriers alongside with them, I will definitely do that. And I'm trying to teach them how to advocate because they're coming from, a whole new country and trying to learn a new language and just the culture shock and all the trauma that each child has is very hard. So for me, it's honestly a blessing. I consider this to be a blessing, and just working with all these kids, and for me to share stories with them when I talk to them and they're like, what? Estuviste aquí, no te creo. And I'm like, sí, me pusieron 9 inyecciones y te puedo decir en qué manos me las dieron. And I also share, I'm like, los demás niños, they're walking the same path. And I met my best friend in the shelter. So I also made a lot of connections with the staff. So the staff, thank you so much for keeping those kids and me back then sane and creating all these activities. I wish I could be with the kids in the shelter and just spend time with them for fun, because that's always something I wanted to do. But I also want to advocate for them on a much bigger scale, and just trying to make sure that they're safe whenever they're going to be reunited with the sponsor, because that is what I do. But I'm very thankful for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Anna. Our next question is for Alejandra. How can the public get involved in advocating for unaccompanied children?
So there is many ways that the public can get involved with advocating for unaccompanied children. I'll say one will be calling your government representatives and asking them, to protect children's right, to give them a chance to tell their experiences, to also establish standards for the humane treatment of children and their families in Custom and Border Protection custody. Also by supporting organizations such as USCRI or Kids in Need of Defense, which were the ones who provided me with a pro bono attorney for the process that we have to go through after we are released from Border Patrol agents. And also staying involved with everything that's going on in your communities and pretty much trying to find out how you can help. So staying involved, try to find out what's going on in their community and donating.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. Our next question is for Gerson. So you have participated in several congressional briefings addressing the mistreatment of immigrants at the southern border. How was that? And do you feel that it had an impact and was it helpful? And what message do you have for policymakers?
Yes, that's an excellent question. I participated in a congressional briefing back in 2019. By that time, I still was going through a very kind of difficult process because I barely had 2 years in the country. My experience in the Congress was amazing. I think just the fact that people gather and listened to my story, and that took the time to hear from someone who was coming from Central America made a great impact in my life. It showed that there is people that truly care about the future of numerous unaccompanied children who are currently listening to us. I think that gave me hope, that gave me a lot of strength, because it was really inspirational to see how some policymakers are trying to pass all these policies in order to change the perspective and the treatment towards unaccompanied children. And regarding my message for policymakers is to consider all the implications that unaccompanied children have to face in order to get to this country. Consider all the traumatic experiences, consider all the times that we have been vulnerable, and try to be a little bit empathetic when addressing all these concerns, because sometimes we don't get the same treatment as we expect from other people. I think my main message might be to stay on top of things, to hear from, to have more spaces like this, to reach out for those children who are currently in detention, and hear their stories, reflect on that, and hopefully all those policies that we that are gonna be beneficial, and hopefully are gonna be beneficial for all of us, can get passed, and we can have a better future for unaccompanied children, a better and a more clear future for all of us.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Nicole Gomez. If you could have had the opportunity to have a network of support after reunification and release, what would be some of the most important support systems you could have had? Let's start with Anna and then go ahead with Alejandra and Gerson.
For me, I think that the biggest support that I could have had within my community was someone that was willing to uh, just navigate everything that was new to me. And because I was in foster care, I did have the opportunity to be connected to a lot of those programs that did help me. But unfortunately, when you age out of the foster care system, everything just kind of like cuts off. So I would have hoped that those programs would have gone beyond me emancipating from foster care, and trying to navigate, especially college, because it is very hard, and we're just trying to make it, and you're always kind of hard on yourself, and you're. I will say I was comparing myself to other students in college because they had so much more opportunities than I did. But I'm also very thankful for the resources that I had. I also would have loved to have a mentor that had experienced what I had experienced or along those lines, to just kind of feel understood and not have to explain myself to everybody into the reason why I deserve to be in the same place that my friends or other classmates. I was kind of exhausted from kind of explaining that and making my voice be heard with even professors. But I think right now, as a social worker, I advocate a lot for trauma-informed practice in all areas, just so that people can be aware of having those encounters and just be trauma informed, just have those teams that can help those kids.
I think in regards to networking after being in a shelter, I share the same perspective as Anna. I think having a mentor after being reunified, it's will be an amazing way to assimilate all the trauma and past experiences that unaccompanied children have lived. My experience, when I got reunified with my mom, I was so scared of going out because of the trauma, and every time I would think that anything can happen, I had to be really careful. So having a mentor, I think that has had this firsthand experience might be really impactful. Not because they can share their stories, they can be close and can understand one another, but mentors can actually show you how to navigate better the system, and in regards to educational purposes and life itself, because sometimes we come pretty young, and we don't truly understand how actually the world works. Although sometimes we do, we still need that extra help, that extra support. So that would be like my main message here. Having a mentor, relying on people who are empathetic, who can push you and who can actually see your potential. That might that can help you for the future and achieve your goals.
I could have had the opportunity to have a network of support after my release, I'll say it would be to have somebody walk me and my little brother through the process of going to school for the first time, going to school where nobody speaks the same language as I do. Or like Gerson mentioned, having a mentor. For me, it was pretty hard for my first day of school. When the teacher goes around the circle and asks everybody, say your name, your something you like, your favorite color. When my name was called, I just stood up there and I couldn't understand what anybody was saying. And I remember first day of school, I was told to go back to my country because I didn't speak the language. And so I think having mental health support for unaccompanied children who just cross the border, it is a lot of traumatic experience that we've been through throughout the journey. And now we're going to school and we have to face all those problems. And also probably not just for us, but also for our parents or for our guardians after we get released, because most of the times my mom was getting, you know, all these packages, and she couldn't also understand what those papers were saying or what the next steps were. In my case, I am always thankful for my lawyer, Lucero. We call her our guardian angel, because in my case, she was the one that walked my mom through the process of getting us into school or going to her first day of school. So probably having that person that can walk us through what's next, what's after everything we've been through.
And for the last question, I want to ask our panelists if you have any last thoughts that you want to share with the audience.
I think that a lot of times as professionals, we tend to be very hard on ourselves because we do burn out, because a lot of the work that we do is hard work and we don't give ourselves enough grace, and we're working to make these kids stronger and more resilient. And I want you guys to also know that they are teaching you a lot of things. You are learning from them as much as they are learning from you, and that you being so nurturing to them means a lot. I mean, I can tell you most of the staff that was in the shelter with me, I can say all their names and where they're from and what was that special something that connected me to them. And I'm very thankful, and you know, I wish I could see them, but I always think of them. I always pray for them. I always pray that if they're still in this role, that they will help all these kids coming behind, and there is going to be more kids. And I want you know, the percentage of us immigrants and refugees to get higher education to rise. And I really want you guys, and I want all those kids to make this country that we are present, and we are going to be present, and we are very strong, and no matter what comes our way, we will overcome. Thank you very much for inviting me to this platform and sharing my story, and thank you guys for being part of it, and just listening to Alejandra and Gerson just share our stories. And for me is very emotional, and before we started I was very emotional because you just kind of think about all those kids that are in the shelter, and we know it's very hard, and it's going to be hard throughout this journey after you're out. So I'm very thankful for my job. I'm very thankful for the opportunity that I do have working with all the youth coming out of the shelters, and when I do talk to them, and all my coworkers that are amazing and do hard work. And you know, we always have to do self-care, so don't forget about self-care, because this is the social worker in me reminding you guys to do self-care. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here today.
My last thoughts for this panel, I want to give a big shout out to Immigrant Defenders Law Center, because they were, especially Mickey Donovan Cullis, because she was my lawyer, and I wouldn't be here speaking today if it wasn't for them. So I'm truly grateful for that. Another thought that I have is, I wish education could be more accessible for unaccompanied children. I wish we could have more programs, you know, to help out current and future unaccompanied children, because sometimes we aren't ready for this educational system, this system that is always hard, to assimilate. I wish we could have more teachers, that can get inspired, to teach current unaccompanied children to be more understanding, to be more close, and provide a safe space to let their stories known, because we all can make a great impact. We all can, like I previously said, we all can achieve great things. We just need that extra push, with that extra support, but we still can. So be always mindful of that. Be always optimistic that things in the future will get eventually better and will fall into place. So keep being resilient, keep being strong. Transmit that message that you want to transmit. Speak up when you have to speak up. And always, and most importantly, always give back to your origin and to your community here, because during these times, the best thing we can do is stay united, and transmit the message of being united. So that's all I have to say for this panel. Thank you so much again, and thank you for your attention.
My final thoughts and ideas, I'll say, would be, first off, I've read a few comments about how much inspiration all of you are getting from us. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all the hard work you do to protect these kids, to give them an opportunity. So I want to say thank you for all your hard work. I also want to say keep getting involved. Keep getting involved. Try to reach out to kids who just have been released, in which way they can get some help. And last but not least, I want to say also to the kids right now, we can do this. Like you've heard before, all three of us, where you are now, and look at where we are now. Just work hard. Don't forget where you come from. All those sacrifices that you had to make, they'll make you stronger, and you'll get through all of this. So yeah, thank you very much for having me here, and thank you for providing this safe spaces where we can share our stories, and so that we can create, make that impact in others people's lives. Thank you very much.
I want to thank our panelists for joining us today. The three of you are such an inspiration to all of us. We admire you for your bravery and your resilience. Thank you for sharing your stories with us today, and please continue to do all the amazing work that you do. I will now turn it over to AnnaMarie, who will close out our panel.
Thank you, Jenny. Before we completely close out, I wanted to note that there are so many comments in the chat area. One thing that I feel like I'm seeing over and over again is how powerful it is to have former unaccompanied children sharing their words and experiences with the children who are currently in shelters. So I've seen that repeatedly in the comment section. And I also really appreciated the panelists' comments about mentoring, having former unaccompanied children mentoring current unaccompanied children. And so I'm really putting stars and exclamation points next to those two ideas so that the USCRI policy and advocacy team can take those and move forward. And I want to reiterate our thanks to the panelists. And we hope that all of you who watched today will follow along with our 20-year retrospective. Our first chapter of the retrospective is on our websites. And next month, we'll be issuing a chapter on the Flores Settlement Agreement. I also want to share that each month we will be highlighting an individual who originally came to the US as an unaccompanied child and telling you about their journey and what they're doing now. So please follow us and the Children's Village on social media and go to the USCRI website, refugees.org. Thank you all again.